With almost 30 different KiwiSaver providers to choose from, how do you know you're making the right choice? Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do here, but I am going to cover 4 must-have characteristics that may help you come to a decision on KiwiSaver. And in no particular order, here are the 4 must-haves that we at Ungaro & Co. have considered when choosing the providers that we work with. Number 1, your KiwiSaver provider needs to have good numbers. Performance isn't everything, but it's still something. So using independent tools that the Commission for Financial Capability provide can be really helpful here, specifically this one called Fund Finder. What's the performance like from one KiwiSaver provider relative to other similar schemes? How much risk do they take in the process of investing? What are the fees like? And where does your money ultimately get invested? These are some of the questions that you can find answered here. If you look at the show notes, you'll find a link to Fund Finder. You put the details in, see how it ranks. Who knows, your scheme may already be the exact type of fund that's right for you right now. So what's next in the must-have list? Number 2, choice in style. Now, we're not talking about the style of jeans here. We're talking about what management style does the KiwiSaver provider use. Now, just a quick tangent here. When you're investing with KiwiSaver, your funds actually sit with an independent custodian. This means that your KiwiSaver provider can't legally touch your money. They can only instruct the custodian to acquire units in various investments that you've allowed them to make. Now, how they make these investment decisions is known as the style. And you can have either active or passive. Active means that philosophically, you believe it's possible to achieve a better return from your investment decisions by making minor strategic adjustments at just the right time. If you're right, you'll do better in the good times, and you won't suffer as much during the bad times. Next up is passive. You believe just spreading out your investments wide enough and investing regularly, no matter what the market conditions are, is the best way to proceed. Active means you believe there's an edge to avoid the average. Passive, well, the best you can get is average, so there's no point in paying extra for a so-called edge. Now, I've seen enough to know that the argument for or against one versus the other is kind of flimsy, and it kind of depends on who's selling what. So I think you should have the right to choose. And because most providers in New Zealand don't give you this choice, I've ensured that we have an option for both active and passive. And that way, we don't force an option on you where the science isn't clear yet. Number 3 must-have. Is the KiwiSaver scheme just another add-on to a larger group's activities, or is the KiwiSaver thing all that they do? Now, ideally in this space, you want the provider to be keeping their eye on just one game, KiwiSaver. We therefore don't use providers where KiwiSaver is not their sole business. And the spin-off from this is that it also means that you're far more likely to be dealing with a New Zealand-based provider where all the profits made are directed to people most likely to spend it in our local economy. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the 4th must-have. A recent survey by Financial Advice New Zealand found that advised New Zealanders are twice as likely as unadvised New Zealanders to feel at least reasonably prepared for retirement. So the 4th must-have is that the KiwiSaver provider welcomes and encourages its members to seek out advice which is independent from them. Now, for a lot of Kiwis, access to financial advice in the area of investing is so cost prohibitive that they don't ever get it. With KiwiSaver, the advice in relation to the implementation and ongoing reviews can be conducted by financial advisors that the KiwiSaver provider works with. And the cost of it is already covered by a small portion of the fee that you're paying your KiwiSaver provider directly. Financial advisors are better positioned, therefore, than KiwiSaver providers to provide ongoing advice, because if there's actually a better option for you to consider with another provider in the future, they don't have an incentive to share this with you, do they? So in summary, the must-haves for you to keep in mind are the same set of criteria that my firm applies when choosing providers that we recommend. Number 1, you need good numbers around return, fees, and risk. Number 2, you need choice between active and passive options. And number 3, ideally, you want to be dealing with a New Zealand-based provider that only does KiwiSaver. Lastly, number 4, if you want to be in the group most likely to be prepared for retirement, then you need a provider who promotes the use of financial advisors. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helped.